bright today, young people. Good morning, everybody. So, it's no news here to stand up here and tell you that True Mother wants to bless everybody in the world. I'm sure we've all heard that. And it's no news to tell you that as a consequence, many members of the unification movement all over the world are on the streets, engaged in a campaign to bless everybody. On the streets, in the homes, in the schools, in the laundromats, everywhere they're going to bless everybody's marriage. So when you talk to people and you want to bless them, sometimes they talk to you, sometimes they ask you what you're doing. Have you had that experience? They ask you, what are you doing? And then they want to know what you're doing. Have you thought, I want to know what I'm doing too? Sometimes. Because if you talk to people, most people really don't see any hope for building an ideal world. We talk about building an ideal world, but most people don't see any hope for building an ideal world. And I really can't blame them. If you read the Bible, Jesus said, in the last days, you will hear about wars and rumors of wars. But if I think about it, the last days must be lasting a long time, because all of history has been wars and rumors of wars. There's never been a time when there has not been wars and rumors of wars. In all over the world, there have been so many oppressed and afflicted peoples, nations, religions, races, all different reasons for people to have bad relationships with each other. Even today, there's still, all over the world, many afflicted, oppressed peoples and cultures. And they're acting out their problems all over the world. Most of the time, people who feel oppressed and afflicted feel the need to lash out against the people who are oppressing them. And people who are oppressed and afflicted want to hurt those who have hurt them. They want freedom, and they want to hurt people who have hurt them. So we see riots, we see terrorism, we see wars, we hear rumors of wars all over the place all the time. And all of those things just lead to wars and more rumors of wars over and over again. So most of the time, people don't have any realistic idea that how an ideal world will come into existence. So what's our plan to build an ideal world? What's your plan to build an ideal world? What's your plan to build an ideal world? Okay. People who are at the first service are not allowed to call out the answers. Can we put the reading back up, the last reading? It was an open book test. Yeah, you have to pay attention, right? What does it say there? What do we say here? What? The first step to resolving world's problems is what? Resolving world's problems. What are the world's problems? What are the world's problems? There are a lot of problems. You name whatever problem you want to name. What's the first step to resolving that problem? Do we know that? Okay. Even Jesus said that. Seek ye first God's kingdom and his righteousness. Jesus understood that. Seek ye first God's kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. What's the second step? Expel Satan. I don't know, we can defeat him. We have to expel him. What does expel mean, by the way? Kick him out. Take him out. Of course, most people do not realize that Satan is dwelling within us. Not something I like to talk about, not something we like to tell everybody, but that's what we've learned. And what's the third step? Mind-body unity. Actually, I know, we read Father's speeches, he talked so many times about mind-body unity. Of course, the difference with true Father is he explained clearly about mind-body unity. He identified clearly mind-body unity. But it takes a while to figure it out, what that means. It takes a long time to figure out what that means. But it's the root of all problems and the solution to all of our problems. And of course, Father not only talked about mind-body unity, he accomplished mind-body unity. He showed us what mind-body unity looks like. What it means to be a human being whose mind and body are one with God at the center. That's a different kind of human being. That's a human being made in the image of God. So many times Father talked about that. The beginning of everything. Wars and rumors of wars may be the universal constant of history. But there have been times in history when people have made significant, lasting, positive changes in the world. I want to look at a couple of those times because those are times, relate them right back here. I want to talk about somebody most of you have heard of. I hope all of you have heard about, but most of you have heard of this person. In the first half of the 20th century, India was struggling to be independent from the colonial rule of the British. Mahatma Gandhi was a lawyer in South Africa, but he helped the Indian minority living there to gain some level of freedom from the oppression that they were suffering there. And he returned back to India, and he emerged as a leader back in India in the movement to free India from the British rule. But he did not advocate violent revolution, fighting back against the British. He did not advocate hatred and revenge, because violence is Satan's tactic. Violence always brings more wars and rumors of wars. Instead, he employed a different tactic. First, he led by civic disobedience, by nonviolence, and by self-sacrifice. He often fasted for long periods of time, and I mean long, to protest what he perceived as social injustice against the Indian people. It was called, the Hindus call it fasting unto death. And he got a lot of attention that way. The British didn't even want his pictures to be shown, the condition he was in. He sacrificed himself to pay for the offense of other people. He took the indemnity himself. People united with him, sometimes at the cost of their lives. They did overcome the power of the British government. God moved the hearts of the people, of the British people, and the British surrendered in front of a weaponless army. And lasting change came about. Anybody see that movie about Gandhi 20 years ago? So I remember that movie, but I remember one scene, and they were protesting, and they were wearing all their white Indian robes, and they got gunned down in the square. They were gunned down by the British. We're going to stop this protest. We're just going to gun them down. We'll show them. And the robes all exploded in red blood, and the people lay there dying. And then you wonder how much mind-body unity is required to stand in front of death and willingly accept death for the sake of a greater good, for them the liberation of their homeland and the freedom for following generations. How much mind-body unity is required to do that? So I looked up a quote from Gandhi, and I found this: happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. Does that sound like somebody else, you know? If you put that in, one of the Way of Tradition books, everybody would say Reverend Moon said that. I'm pretty sure he probably did say that, actually. Because that's what your mind-body unity is. Happiness. Happiness. When you unite your mind and body, you're going to be happy. He led the people to unite their minds and bodies in pursuit of a greater good. And with their minds and bodies in unity, God could dwell in them. And in that state, they prized peace more than they feared death. With their mind and body in unity, they prized peace more than they feared death. We've heard that also. Don't be afraid of death. Father said so many things about the value of mind and body unity. Or the second one is, how about expel Satan? Father said, I read in here, if you serve others at the cost of your life, sacrificing yourself, then it's natural. Satan will be separated from you. And Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Christian or Hindu, anyone who unites his mind and body with God as his center will be a peacemaker and the child of God. So Gandhi found God, expelled Satan, united mind and body, and changed the whole state of the Indian nation. And a permanent change, lasting change, significant change, positive change. So we had a whole lot of people on our 100K today. Who else? Who learned from Gandhi this tactic? Older Americans, we know. Yeah. A pastor of a small Baptist church in Atlanta, Georgia, became an international celebrity by teaching his followers the exact same message. By the 1950s, the long history of racial tension, racism in America, especially in the Deep South, had worn down and torn down the black community. There was a terrible racial tension everywhere in America. Riots would break out, people would die, large areas would be destroyed, especially black communities, large areas would be destroyed. But nothing changed. The environment did not change for the people. Nothing got better. Martin Luther King saw what Gandhi had accomplished in India, and he knew that that would be the path for the Negro in America. Martin Luther King knew that Gandhi had activated God's eternal power in his battle with the British. And he knew that the Negro could never win freedom in a physical battle, because there are no winners in a physical battle, a physical war. So he wanted to activate God's power on the side of the Negro cause. How did he activate God's power? He led the people with absolute Christian principles. He looked for God's kingdom and God's righteousness. He never spoke of getting retribution against white people. His speeches are amazing. He always spoke about unity, finding unity, elevating both races, elevating the people through unity. He said he had a dream where on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slave owners and the sons of former slaves could sit down at the table of brotherhood as brothers. He said he had a dream where little white boys and girls could hold hands with little black boys and girls as brothers and sisters. He didn't seek to elevate one over another. And he warned the people with words like this: in the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. History is the witness to what happened next. I was a witness to what happened next. Many of us were a witness. The black community adopted the tactics of Martin Luther King, nonviolence, the tactics of Gandhi, the tactics of Jesus, the tactics of God. The black community determined to follow Martin Luther King's words through persecution and even through martyrdom, facing death. Maybe you've seen the videos of the protesters being hosed down by the fire hoses in Birmingham, Alabama, and other places in the South. Think about how difficult that must have been for those people when they're being hammered by those fire hoses. How difficult must it be to take that kind of punishment and to stand up, soaking wet, hurting, and not return evil for evil. That has got to be the real meaning of mind-body unity. They chose to put Jesus' words into action and turn the other cheek. What must God have felt when he was looking down at that kind of scene? What could God be thinking? If you serve other people at the cost of your life, sacrificing yourself, then it's natural that Satan will be separated from you. So again, using the weapon of self-sacrifice, the black community found God, expelled Satan, and united their mind and body. What was the result? God's Spirit moved across America. The civil rights movements of the early 60s saw the blossoming of unity between black and whites that had never been seen before. The whole culture of this nation was changed fundamentally at that time and has developed and developed since then. No laws or regulations written by any government could do that. No education in school could do that. No scientific analysis could do that. It was the formula of self-sacrifice that broke down the ancient racial barriers. It was a formula of mind and body unity that changed the American landscape forever. Now, personally, I don't think that those protesters in India knew when they were being persecuted by the British that their individual suffering would liberate the entire Indian nation. I don't think that those protesters in Birmingham, Alabama thought that their individual suffering would not only cause a bright new sun to rise in the city of Birmingham, but on the whole nation of America. God took their sincere, dedicated effort and multiplied it 1,000-fold. So, when I am blessing people, what do I tell them? The first step to solving the world's problems is to find God. This is not even conceptual. This is historical. Find God. We have to find God. Of course, throughout history, this has been God's biggest headache. People don't know God. Children don't know the Father. But today we can make an amazing statement, right? We know God. Do we know God? We know God. Not conceptually, substantially. Because of true parents, we know God substantially. Second step is to expel Satan. How do we expel Satan? It's an open book test. If you serve others at the cost of your life, sacrificing yourself, it is natural for Satan to leave you. Do we really like serving other people at the cost of our lives? I don't know if we like it or not. Is it easy to serve other people at the cost of our lives? It's not easy to serve other people at the cost of our lives. But if we do, we will gain our lives. Of course, Jesus said, he who would lose his life would gain his life. And the solution to world's problems, to establish men and women who have accomplished mind-body unity. When I say this, I'm not just repeating a slogan, may seem insignificant. But Gandhi said, what you are doing may seem insignificant, but it is important that you do it. Maybe it was insignificant for Gandhi. For one man not to eat is insignificant compared to 500 million. What was the population back then? 500 million people in oppression. One man is not eating. That's insignificant. But it was important that he did it. God's Spirit will move like mighty waters beyond our understanding and capacity when we unite our minds and bodies and do God's will. So there's a promise in the Bible, and it's a dream I have too, that there's going to be a day when the Lord comes and there'll be a new heaven and a new earth, and the dwelling of God will be with us, with men. God will be with us and wipe every tear from our eyes, and there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, and the former things will pass away. All the things that we know as normal will pass away. So, Father said the blessing is the vehicle to that. And when we talk about the blessing, when we talk about mind-body unity, we got to talk about the good stuff as well. True love, right? So after Father said that, in the same speech he said, true love is the reason why women are born for the sake of men, and men are born for the sake of women. Solutions to global problems, there he goes again, solutions to global problems become possible only when our minds and bodies, and when men and women come to live for the very purpose of becoming one, centering upon true love. True love can be found only in a situation where a person exists for the sake of his or her complementary partner. Satan's love is centered on the self, whereas God's love is centered on others. These two kinds of love are diametrically opposite. Okay, that pretty much sums up what the blessing is. So if saving the world means I get to unite my mind and body so that what I think and what I say and what I do are in harmony, then sign me up. Because that's the definition of a happy person. And if saving the world means I get to live for the sake of a beautiful woman, and she will live for my sake, sacrificing herself for my happiness, sign me up. If true parents have taught us anything, it is that solutions to global problems become possible only after we unite our minds and bodies and unite as husbands and wives, which is something we all can do with a little help from God and true parents. Thank you very much.